Megan from Central Virginia. You know, I am a no-dig gardener. I, however, do not have only one way to do it. There are so many ways to make no-dig garden beds, and all of them require a whole lot less effort than trying to shovel and turn over ground. Plus, you're building soil as you go. So I'm going to show you and tell you what you can do if you have a couple of bales of hay or straw to create a nice, very nice no-dig garden. So what have we here? Bales of hay. You can take this bale of hay, plunk it right on the ground, and in time it will kill off everything underneath it, and you will have a beautiful surface to plant into. Let me show you what happens. Where you see the soil right here is where I had hay bales stacked up, and they were stacked up since, last summer, I guess, early summer. And you can see that all of the earth underneath is beautiful and rich, and actually we could plant into that straight away. Now, generally the soil here is very compacted, but because a lot of that hay began to compost down in it and everything else underneath composted as well, we now have this glorious, glorious, rich, friable soil. So rather than waste that, I could take this area and make it into a beautiful planting bed. Now, I'm not going to do that in this particular space because it's not really right adjacent to my garden. But if I wanted to do that right now, I could plant. Now, obviously, it's not planting season. So what I would do right now is just cover it up with more hay and then plant into it in the spring. You know, if I compare that soil to the soil that's in that compacted bed that I have in my garden right now that I had double dug a few years ago, and now the soil, part of it in places is like hard as a rock. There's no comparison. It's just gorgeous, rich soil. My garden was created just in a field. This field had not been cultivated in a very long time. I mean, I'm talking like probably 50, 60, 70, well, probably more like 70 years. And it had been hayed from time to time. But really, it just was a field. And so it was, I came out to try to rototill it, and it was impossible. And I just quickly gave up on that. And I said, this is just not worth it. There's got to be a better way. So I created my garden, and it has greatly expanded over the years. But one of the biggest problems I had that first year, I did put a fence up, and everything along the fence line, trying to keep the grass out, was a battle. It couldn't really be weed whacked because there was a fence right there. And so what I did, I gave up. I eventually just gave up on that. But I had ordered some hay or some straw that year, and I just stacked up the bales straight against the fence. You end up with a great planting surface. So another way that you can do this is you can actually take off what I call slabs of hay, about this thick, and put it straight on the ground in a row, and you can create that bed just with that amount of hay. It will do the same thing. It will kill off the grass down below. Because it's still in a tight bale, it's not going to let any light through, and so weed seeds and things like that won't germinate. Come spring, when you're ready to plant, I would just part that hay and dig a little bit and plant right into that area. I use this method along my fence. Let me show you. You can see I've done that right here at the end of my blackberry row, where I wanted to be able to create a cultivated bed right out here that would come to the walkway. And last summer, I just took slabs of hay, just like I showed you, plunked them right down. And they've been here since probably maybe June. If we lift up, you'll see that it's glorious, glorious space, plantable space under there. So next spring, I will be planting this probably in flowers. I might be extending my lavender bed as well down here. So this is the area along the fence that was started just by stacking up hay bales directly against the fence to try to prevent grass from creeping in, and that did work really well. Depending on how much time you have, there are a couple of different ways that you can plant into these hay bales or compacted hay spaces. If you are playing the long game, like you have a year, and you just had extra hay and you wanted to stack it up, you could actually just stack it up and leave it, and in the course of a year, it would really begin to compact down, and you can just part it and plant right into it. I, however, did not have a whole year. Mine was down for a half year. I think I put it down in the summer, and I wanted to plant into it the following year. That's when I was trying to prevent weeds from creeping in. By the way, that was effective. So I had bales that were just stacked up along here. And one of the things I did, I just sort of used a modified straw bale method. I conditioned the bales by putting in some organic fertilizer, pouring in some fish emulsion, doing this over the course of, I think it was a 10-day cycle. You can look it up on the internet, but you're basically conditioning the bale and jump starting and furthering the breakdown. And then you just plant directly into that. So those were hay bales that were stacked up like a hay bale. And I planted tomatoes in there, I planted peppers in there, I believe, and they grew just fine. By the next planting season, those were completely planted all the way down. And the hay was about this high at that point. And that became an awesome garden space just as it was. And that's where I grew a lot of my butternut squash, and I grew peppers, and I grew tomatoes, and I grew flowers, all sorts of things in tremendous abundance over the following 2 years. So really, the entire borderlands of my garden have been created, most of them have been created with this just compacted hay bale or pieces of hay bales flat onto the ground. No cardboard, nothing. It just works great. So you can give it a go. I use hay, but I've also used straw. You can use either one for this method. And I have plenty of videos on using hay in the garden and why I do it and how I do it and some things to watch out for. So with that, I will leave you. I've had a great time experimenting with different kinds of no-dig beds. For me, I'm convinced that no-dig gardening is the best method for me. I have less watering to do, I have far less weeding to do, and my gardens have been incredibly productive. And again, I haven't been gardening my whole life. I've really only been gardening. This is my 4th season. And so those are just some of the things that I have learned. So happy to pass on to you. I hope you're well. Take care.